Hey everyone, Corrections 101 here. Hope everybody's doing all right tonight. We're going to discuss some things here real quick. Trying not to make this too long of a video tonight. We have a new look. We're trying out a different recording and streaming platform. StreamYard that I was using just kept having a bunch of hiccups, and I know it wasn't my computer. I know it wasn't the fiber internet that I have, and so I think it was just a glitch that kept happening. So we're going to see how this new platform called Riverside goes. So I requested those records from SIACC and SIADSA, and it's pretty humorous. Um, they sent me back a bill for $46,788.67. At that price, I'm expecting to get back a hardcore novel with my name on it, written by a ghostwriter or something like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. These people are the worst. Um, let's go through it just for people to catch up real quick. So Mark Young, he was arrested in December of this last year, so just a few months ago. Um, last May, he was he was a juvenile corrections officer at South Iowa Area Detention Service Agency, or SIADSA, who is overseen by SIACC, South Iowa Area Crime Commission. And in May, he was found to be grooming and committed a major PREA violation, which at that time he should have been fired. Any competent person, director, administrator, would have fired him at that point, immediately escorted outside of the building. His ass should not have been there anymore. If that would have happened, the sexual assault of a 16-year-old juvenile female in custody in October, over what I call the 3 days of hell for this girl that he put her through, never would have happened. It would have never happened. And the hubris of um, SIADSA and SIAC at this point is absolutely nuts. So let's go. Let's try this now. Like I said, this is a new platform, so just give me a second here, and let's take a look at some things here. Give me a second here. Okay, so we're pulling up the invoice here, and as you can see, it's referenced here. I'll scroll you to the top so you can see from South Area Iowa Crime Commission, out of Fairfield, Iowa. It says to me, and I requested a bunch of documents. And the Iowa law is very clear on this. Most records are expected to be turned over to the general public. You don't even have to have a specific reason why you're asking for it. And one of the major laws that they passed, or one of the reasons why it was passed, is because they were tired of these different agencies hiding behind being able to charge even the regular media like CNN, the Associated Press, places like that, tens of thousands of dollars for just a few documents, and no one in the right mind is ever going to pay that. And that was a way for public agencies to be able to hide behind the laws so that they could not have any accountability and turn stuff over. So if we look at this, record after record after record is confidential pursuant to Iowa Code Section 22.7, unavailable due to ongoing criminal investigation. The ongoing criminal investigation is done. It's over. This investigation was started in October. It was wrapped up in December with the arrest of Mark Young, with charges only filed against him. And let's take a look at this here real quick. We're going to look up the Iowa Child Endangerment Code. Now, I have taken this case and I have taken it to many different attorneys. Like I said, everybody kind of knows who I am, and I went to law school, and even though I didn't complete it because of life circumstances, he just built a huge network of attorneys. And plus, with going to school where I'm going to, finishing my master's, there's a lot of attorneys, people that have worked for, the federal, alphabet agencies like FBI and things like that, that I've bounced all this stuff over with, off of, because I was like, I'm just getting gaslit here by these people, and I'm just wanting to make sure I'm not missing anything. And Every time I've, shared these documents and codes and laws and everything, I've just gotten a response back that I'm right over the target on this. Here's the 726.6 of the Iowa uh, code, which says entire child endangerment. A person who is the parent, guardian, or person having custody or control over a child or a minor under the age of 18 with a mental or physical disability. So the physical or mental disability doesn't matter because it says having control over a child or. So they have the custody and control over the juveniles in custody, or a person who is a member of the household in which the child or blah blah blah, and A, knowingly acts in a manner that creates a substantial risk to a child or minor's physical, mental, or emotional health or safety. Again, let's read that again. A person who is the parent, guardian, or person having custody or control over a child who knowingly acts in a manner that creates a substantial risk to a child or minor's physical, mental, or emotional health or safety. I've bounced this. One of the attorneys I bounced this off of used to be a prosecutor in a very major city in the United States, and I asked her. I was like, with the director at SIADSA and the director at SIACC, they were put on notice that Mark Young inmate was grooming these females. Major PREA, and again, PREA for people who don't know, PREA is the Prison Rape Elimination Act. He had a major violation. He would have been fired from any other agency other than this. They were on notice that he was about the grooming and everything, and everybody with half a brain could see that this was not going to end well if they kept him on there. And they decided to keep him on there as an employee. And a shock to nobody, let me get my shock face, that just 4 months later in October, he sexually assaults after he identifies the juvenile female that he wants to assault in custody. And so they took that risk. Everything fits child endangerment charges for the director of SIADSA and SIACC. So they're lucky they're not charged right now. And maybe there will be, maybe not. But aside from that, they've dodged a bullet. As of now, I have no idea what's going on with the county prosecutor or anybody else. I'm getting all my information from documents, the media and everything like that. Just doing my own research. I don't have anything to do with any investigation or anything like that. I have not talked to anybody that's involved in the investigation from law enforcement or with the county attorney or anybody. So I don't know the reasoning for no charges right now. Maybe there'll be some down in the future. I don't know. But the hubris of them to be able to still be employed in a capacity is wild, absolutely wild. And how they can still be still be employed in their capacities is absolutely amazing. They shouldn't be. This would not stand at any private organization. This would not stand at any other government agency that I've ever been a part of. I mean, I've been part of several major agencies, working in corrections and probation and court services and things like that. Anybody who did any of this, in this kind of role and allowed somebody who was grooming, committed a major PREA violation, allowed them to stay, and then that person ended up sexually assaulting a minor in custody, would have been fired that second. So, so let's go back here real quick to the invoice. So, what I'm saying is the hubris of these people. Okay, they have so you put in records to come to your own conclusions, to see what else there is. Because I tell you what, the more information that comes out of this, because eventually we're going to get the records. If we have to go to district court, that's what we'll do. But the law is very clear. The overprotection and overqualifying of these protections is not correct. Their interpretation of the law is just not correct. I've confirmed that with other attorneys that have looked into this too. But, well, I'm not saying I'm an attorney. I'm definitely not an attorney. But You know what I mean? I've discussed this with attorneys that have looked into it, and they said no, they're overly applying these laws, and this typically happens with government agencies that have documents that are going to be deeply embarrassing, and they don't want they don't want the public to see. We regularly see this with agencies, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody and not using anybody specific, but with the FBI or something like that, if something is embarrassing, lots of times they'll have redactions, and they say it's for, national security or whatever, and then when it finally gets unredacted, it had absolutely nothing to do with national security. It was because if people would have read that, the public would have read it, it would have been deeply embarrassing to the agency. And so, when they say here $46,766 for their attorneys to go through these documents to decide what can be redacted and not, they don't even say in here what these documents are. Okay? They don't even, who knows? Once their legal team goes through it and wipes everything embarrassing and refuses to reveal any, turn over anything embarrassing, we may end up with 5 pages of documents for $46,000. SIACC and SIADSA hates you. They do. Southeast Iowa. They have no accountability. No one's holding them accountable as of now. We're trying to change that. Accountability would be new leadership, and Southeast Iowa should demand that. People are pissed, and the story is starting to catch on, and I've been reaching out to larger channels and to some of the national media, and some people are taking a look at this, and I'm not making any promises, but hopefully some bigger channels will start posting this out there, because it's just outrageous. When I tell them kind of how this happened, with everything that happened in May and then the sexual assault happening in October, people kind of think there's no way this you have to be missing something. This can't be right. I mean, and I'm like, no. look at the arrest warrant affidavit yourself. And I send them over the documents, and they look at it, and they're like, holy crap, this is nuts. I see, yeah. And also too, like I said, I'm working on my master's, and work with some underclassmen and everything, and starting to use this as an example for some of those up and comers that haven't been able to work in law enforcement yet, or in for any corrections agencies or anything like that. As an example, I mean, even the students get it. They're just like, holy crap, this is crazy. A major PREA violation. He was grooming girls, and they kept him on there, and these people still have their jobs. So it's an example. It's a teaching example in academia for these up and comers of just terrible administrators that, you don't want to have anything to do with, definitely what not to do, and things to look out for, as far as grooming. And after Mark Young this case is resolved, I hope to in the future be able to talk to some of those girls that were in juvenile custody in May, and then the victim in this case at some point after this case is resolved, because I would just love to know, what's not in the affidavit, just to understand grooming more as an academic, to be able to put that in a report, and so people could learn from this in trainings and in the academic setting. Like I said, for these up and comers, these 19, 20, 21-year-olds that are in college, getting their undergraduate degree, to have a really good, successful future in law enforcement or in corrections or whatever way they decide to go. So they understand, they can think about this story and the terrible administrators and the grooming and all this stuff that was just ignored, looked the other way, and allowed this wolf to be just absolutely in the hen house to do whatever he wanted to when he wanted to do it. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this, and this is why it's so important to get all the information out there. And the more information that comes out, it's going to get worse. It's going to look worse, but that's okay. That's how we learn from it. We grow from it. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. That's really kind of all I want to talk about. The last thing I want to talk about before we get out of here, we've been rolling for 15 minutes here. I'll try to get out of here in 20 minutes. So another 5 minutes. And some people, the overwhelmingly the support from people. Let me go full screen here so we get that stupid. I hate even looking at that. It's ridiculous. it's just like I said, it's proof that uh, Carrie Folkert's there, who's the director of SIACC. She doesn't care. She hates the public. She hates accountability. I mean, it's in my opinion, anyways. You know, um, the overwhelming people that have reached out to me have been very supportive of bringing everything to light. People are pissed about it, and rightfully so. And more people are finding out about this. And eventually, we're going to hit a point where people are going to be demanding that there needs to be change. We need to have confidence in our public institutions. And right now, there's no way that you can say SIADSA and SIAC has anybody's confidence. And anybody defending that they stay there should be absolutely should do some soul searching. Because there's no way you can say that that was right, that juvenile got what she deserved by Mark Young. They kept him there. The story is so unbelievable, and that the lack of outrage. I posed the question before. Where are the people? Where are the rest of the people who work at South Iowa Area Detention Service Agency at SIADSA? They just stayed there. I mean, she allowed him to stay there after the grooming and after the PREA violation. Now they may not know any better because most of them have never worked at a good jail or good detention center that is run well, has good administrators, and so lots of these people they don't know any better, which is unfortunate. I wish I could take them all through really good run facilities and see all the training that's continuing going on all the time. You're training, which SIADSA has hardly any of it. But anyways, getting back to my last point here, a lot of people have asked me, why I'm taking this so personal. And it's because I've given a lot to the juvenile corrections field. A lot of these kids, there isn't a day that I go by with the thousands of kids that I've dealt with in the juvenile justice system that I don't think about every day. I wonder how they're doing. I wonder if they're still alive even. Some of these kids come from such terrible backgrounds, they don't even stand a chance in life sometimes. And you get really attached to them. And I know a couple of them who've died from drug overdose and being shot and killed in kind of the thug life on the streets, unfortunately. I spend a lot of time thinking about these kids and hoping the best for them, saying a prayer for them, and just you always wonder how they are. And for this mockery to be happening at SIADSA and just giving the rest of us who really take pride and care for these kids to do what they're doing out there, to running an institution this way. And then when people ask questions, they hide behind this or that, make it so outrageously expensive to even look at records. They generally despise the public in answering any questions, being accountable to anybody. And here's the thing: the local media has been they were great when Mark Young was first arrested. Delegate City, Fort Madison Daily Democrat did great stories on it, caught on nationally for about a week, and then everything died, and no one was asking tough questions. No one was asking, okay, in May when all this stuff happened and the PREA violation, why was he held on there? And a lot of these people, like the Lee County Board of Directors, they probably don't, most of them don't know about PREA and how big of a screw up this was and how irresponsible this was. But they'll know soon, I'm only one person and there's only so much I can do in a day. And when I'm working full time and going to school full time, finishing my master's and trying to be a dad and everything, I just don't have a lot of time to, each week to spend spreading the word, but a little by little, we're getting there. We're getting there. It's like I said, we're picking up some traction. It's on some people's radars now. Some interesting people are asking me some interesting questions. I don't really want to dive into that yet because personal conversations, I like to keep them private until someone says, yeah, you can share that info, or after something hits the media or a larger scale. But I wanted to share this. This interesting invoice with you guys. Like I said, they think they're untouchable, and your taxpayer money is paying for this. I mean, they're still sitting after everything that happened there at that detention center that led up to what happened in October. They're still getting paid a ton of money, these two administrators, a ton of money for a cushy job, and they have set up a dadgum wall around them to make sure their house doesn't come crashing down. And they get ready because I can guarantee what's going to happen when some bigger names get involved here. Um, they're gonna start trashing me, of course. They can't defend what they did, so what they're gonna do is they're gonna attack the messenger. They're gonna gaslight everybody. They're gonna say they didn't do anything wrong, and it's gonna deflect to Mark Young. They didn't have anything to do with it. Oh, we reported it after he sexually assaulted her. Yeah, but what about everything before then? You don't have clean hands in this by any means. But anyway, guys, just be good to each other and everybody, and pass the story along. Like, share, subscribe, do all that YouTubey stuff. I'm going to start doing some other videos too. I got to really get back into the YouTube algorithm to where videos are getting 4, 5, 6,000 views. And so I'm going to start throwing in some videos that aren't about Mark Young or SIACC or SIADSA, covering maybe some funny sovereign citizen stuff or something like that, just to get really back in the algorithm so that when I do drop videos like this, it's going to get the same 3, 4, 5,000 views within the first couple days. Because I'm just completely out of the algorithm now. But everybody hang in there. Keep talking about the story. Don't let these people intimidate you. They are not scary. I'm not scared. They can't do anything to you. Um, and don't be gaslit because it's coming. It's coming. And we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Like I said, like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTubey stuff, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Take care of each other, guys. Bye.